My dear chosen one, you're not just being attacked, you've been hunted. Not just this year, not just during that last toxic relationship, but across timelines, across lifetimes, across every vulnerable moment of your existence. This isn't random spiritual warfare, chosen one. This has been a long-term, calculated operation, a dark force, intelligent, strategic, and emotionally manipulative, has been studying you, watching your patterns, analyzing your triggers, creating situations, people, and moments, all designed with one single goal: to break your spirit at the root. But now, something massive has shifted, and for the first time, that force knows it failed. The urgency you're feeling in your spirit right now, that sudden emotional turbulence, that strange pressure in your chest, it's not your imagination. That dark assignment, that carefully crafted spiritual trap, has collapsed. The enemy just realized they missed their last chance. You woke up, you rose up, and now, the one who spent years weaving psychological and spiritual webs around you knows that you're no longer accessible, no longer weak, no longer open for attack. But listen carefully, because what I'm about to reveal is something you were never supposed to discover. The full story behind this karmic persecution and the spiritual shift that just made you impenetrable is bigger than you realize. And if you're already feeling this in your spirit, if something inside you knows this message is exposing the truth of your own journey, I want you to stop right now and declare it in the comments. The assignment failed. Let heaven, the universe, and even the enemy know that you recognize what's happening. Dear chosen one, take this moment and like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell, because what I'm about to reveal next will help you understand why this dark force spent years chasing you, and why now they fear you more than ever before. For most of your life, you thought this was just bad luck, just difficult seasons, just emotional patterns you couldn't break. But now, you're starting to realize that the level of resistance, heartbreak, and psychological warfare you've experienced wasn't natural. This was never just about people turning against you, or doors closing, or sudden waves of depression that came out of nowhere. This was a karmic pursuit. A spiritual predator has been tracking you across timelines, hiding behind different faces, different situations, and different emotional disguises. Each time you tried to rise, they adjusted their strategy, creating new emotional traps, crafting new spiritual distractions, and planting new seeds of self-doubt to keep you from stepping into your true identity. This force didn't come for your finances first, or your relationships, or your career. It came for your mind. It targeted your self-worth, your emotional resilience, and your connection to God. It whispered lies that sounded like your own voice. It replayed your past failures on loop. It magnified every rejection, every heartbreak, every moment of weakness, just to convince you that you were unworthy, unloved, and unwanted by heaven itself. And while you blamed yourself for being too sensitive, too emotional, too broken, this force celebrated how easily it could manipulate your emotional state without you even realizing you were under spiritual attack. What makes this even more dangerous is that the enemy didn't need to use obvious tactics. It used people who looked like friends, lovers who felt like soulmates, opportunities that appeared divine but were energetically destructive. The manipulation was so subtle, so psychologically layered, that you started confusing trauma bonds with love, anxiety with intuition, and emotional chaos with spiritual growth. They studied your heart, your wounds, your deepest fears, and designed situations so specific that every trigger you carried was used as a weapon against you. And the worst part? You internalized the pain as personal failure, when, in reality, it was all by design. This dark force isn't some random low-level energy. It's a strategic entity that has been observing your soul's evolution for lifetimes. In some cases, it attached itself to your bloodline, showing up as generational curses, cycles of addiction, patterns of abandonment, or deep-rooted family dysfunction. It worked through relationships, false mentors, fake friendships, and even spiritual leaders who were unknowingly being used as puppets to keep you confused about your own identity and calling. The level of detail in this operation was meant to ensure one thing, that you would never awaken to who you truly are. But what the enemy didn't expect was your resilience. Even when you were at your lowest, even when you thought you had nothing left, something inside you refused to die. That unexplainable inner fight, that stubborn hope, that tiny voice inside that kept whispering, "Don't give up," was your soul pushing back against years of spiritual oppression. And with every breakdown, with every tear-soaked night, you were unknowingly building spiritual muscle. The same pain that was meant to kill you became the fire that refined you. And with every attempt they made to break your spirit, your soul grew more unshakable. This shift didn't happen overnight. It came after countless moments of questioning your worth, after being betrayed by people you loved, after nights when your prayers felt unanswered, and mornings when you didn't even want to get out of bed. But slowly, something began to awaken inside you. Your discernment grew sharper. Your spirit became less reactive. The emotional hooks they once used to drag you back into confusion started losing their grip. The old cycles began to collapse under their own weight. And one day, without warning, you woke up with a clarity that couldn't be shaken. That was the day heaven canceled the assignment over your life. And while you were still adjusting to this new clarity, the dark force that spent years trying to dismantle you felt the shift instantly. In the spirit realm, they felt the wall go up. They felt the loss of access. The places they used to touch in your energy field suddenly became impenetrable. Their old strategies, their old triggers, their old emotional games all started failing one by one. And now, they're scrambling, watching, waiting, hoping for any small crack in your spiritual armor. But deep down, they know the assignment failed. The game is over. And the chosen one they spent lifetimes trying to destroy is now spiritually untouchable. This is why lately, you've noticed a sudden shift in how people respond to your energy. People who once had control over your emotions now seem powerless. The manipulative games that used to trigger you now feel obvious and almost pathetic in their attempt to destabilize you. Conversations that would have left you spiraling in overthinking now barely touch your peace. That's not by accident. That's the evidence of a spiritual boundary that heaven placed around you, one that this dark force can't penetrate anymore. And because they can't reach you the way they used to, they're panicking. They're testing new angles, trying different emotional hooks, but nothing is sticking. You may have noticed strange patterns lately. People from your past suddenly resurfacing, old wounds randomly getting triggered, or even moments where you feel this invisible pressure, like something watching you from a distance. That's the enemy, still circling, still searching for an entry point. But here's what's different now. You can feel their energy before they even get close. Your discernment is so heightened, your spiritual radar so sharp, that even subtle manipulations that would have slipped past you before now trigger immediate alarms in your soul. Your energy field, once full of open doors and emotional cracks, is now sealed with spiritual authority. And they hate it. They hate how you no longer chase, how you no longer beg for love, for closure, for validation. They hate that you stopped reacting, that you stopped questioning your worth, that you stopped playing the emotional games they spent years perfecting. The silence they hear from you now is louder than any argument you ever gave them. And that silence, that emotional detachment, is a death sentence to the assignment they once carried against you. It's the sound of spiritual boundaries holding firm. This dark force also knows something you're just beginning to realize, that your light is more dangerous now than it's ever been. Before, your light was strong but unprotected. Now, it's both. And that combination makes you a threat to every assignment still active against other chosen ones. Your awakening wasn't just for you. It was for every person connected to your spiritual lineage. Every soul that will cross your path. Every heart you're destined to help heal. The enemy knows this. That's why they fought so hard to stop you before this awakening could happen. You were never just a target. You were always the potential turning point in the battlefield. That's why the attacks were so strategic. That's why the pressure felt personal. The enemy didn't come for you randomly. They came because they knew that once you woke up, their ability to operate through you, through your pain, through your emotional chaos, would end forever. And now, here you are, awake, aware, spiritually armored in ways you never were before. But don't mistake this moment as the finish line. This is just the beginning of a new level of spiritual warfare, where your awareness will be your greatest defense. The enemy will shift tactics. They'll try to come through people you least expect, situations that feel harmless, emotional patterns you thought were healed. But now, you know what to look for. You've been through the worst of it, and you didn't break. And because of that, your discernment is now your shield. Stay vigilant, but stay empowered. The enemy's biggest fear right now is that you'll fully step into the next phase of your spiritual authority, that you'll start using your voice, that you'll begin helping others recognize their own cycles of sabotage, that you'll teach others how to break their own spiritual chains. And guess what? That's exactly what you're being called to do next. This is why your spiritual sensitivity has increased. You're noticing energy shifts faster. You're picking up on people's true intentions without them saying a word. Places that once felt comfortable now feel heavy. Conversations that used to drain you now trigger a visceral rejection inside your body. This is the after effect of surviving long-term spiritual warfare. Your nervous system, your emotional field, even your physical body has been recalibrated to detect low-frequency attacks before they land. It's not paranoia, it's discernment, and this new layer of spiritual awareness is one of the biggest reasons why the enemy knows they've lost access to you for good. You've probably noticed that your sleep patterns are changing too. Where there was once insomnia, anxiety, and spiritual interference in your dreams, there's now more clarity and rest. Your dream state is becoming a sacred space again. Messages are coming through clearer. Divine guidance is reaching you without distortion. The enemy used to manipulate your dream realm, planting fear, confusion, and false emotional memories while you slept. But now, that portal has been cleansed. Angels are standing guard over your rest, and the spiritual harassment that once left you waking up exhausted is losing its power day by day. Even in your waking life, opportunities are starting to shift. Where you once faced constant blocks and closed doors, you're beginning to feel forward movement again. That's what happens when spiritual interference is lifted. Things that were delayed for years suddenly start flowing. People who never saw your value now want your presence. But here's the test. Just because the path is clearing doesn't mean you should say yes to everything. Not every open door is from God. The enemy may still try to send counterfeits wrapped in light. This is where your upgraded discernment comes in. Pause, pray, wait for confirmation. And when it comes to the people who once drained you, don't be surprised if they sense the shift and try to re-enter your life. Some will come with apologies, others with manipulative kindness. Some may even try to trigger you with passive-aggressive comments, just to see if they still have emotional access. This is a critical moment for you, chosen one. This is where you choose whether to reinforce your spiritual boundaries or reopen the cycle you just escaped from. Remember, emotional familiarity is not spiritual alignment. Don't confuse nostalgia with divine timing. You also need to be aware of how the enemy might now target your thoughts. If they can't get to you through people or situations, they'll try to manipulate your inner dialogue. Sudden feelings of unworthiness, random guilt, intrusive thoughts about the past, all designed to make you question your breakthrough. This is why renewing your mind daily, through prayer, affirmation, and intentional focus, is non-negotiable from this point on. The new version of you doesn't just react, it responds with authority. Every negative thought, every emotional trigger, is now an opportunity to choose your peace over your past programming. Another thing you'll notice is that your voice carries more spiritual weight now. The things you speak manifest faster. Your prayers hit different. Your words shift atmospheres. That's because surviving this level of warfare upgraded your spiritual authority. Where once you spoke from pain, now you speak from power. And the enemy knows. The more you use this voice with intention, the more others will wake up too. That's why silence, isolation, and emotional shutdown were such consistent weapons used against you in the past, but not anymore. Your voice is active, your authority undeniable, and perhaps most importantly, you're going to notice that your connection with God feels different, more personal, more direct, more unshakable. The questions that once haunted you, why did this happen? Where was God when I was suffering? Are slowly being replaced with clarity and understanding. You realize now that even in the darkest moments, you were being protected, refined, and prepared. This wasn't punishment. It was preparation for the calling you're about to step into. And from this point forward, nothing will ever taste the same as the peace you're now carrying. But with this new level of clarity comes a new level of responsibility. You can't afford to live on autopilot anymore. The days of ignoring red flags, tolerating half-hearted connections, and betraying your own intuition just to feel loved are over. God didn't bring you this far for you to fall back into the same cycles that almost killed you spiritually. Every decision you make from here on, every conversation you entertain, every invitation you accept, must align with this new frequency of protection and purpose. This isn't about being paranoid. It's about being spiritually wise. You've seen what happens when you ignore the signs. You've felt the cost of self-abandonment. Now, it's time to honor your healing with your choices. And yes, the enemy will test these boundaries. They'll send situations that mimic old patterns. They'll disguise chaos as opportunity. They'll wrap dysfunction in temporary pleasure. You may even feel emotional tugs toward people who once hurt you, just to see if the spiritual cords truly have been cut. That's why staying grounded in prayer, meditation, and self-awareness is crucial right now. Emotional memory is tricky. It will try to romanticize pain, make you miss people who were never good for your soul. But every time you feel that emotional pull, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, does this serve my healing, or does this serve my sabotage? This is also the season where your discernment will become your most valuable spiritual tool. What once felt confusing will now feel clear. Conversations that once left you doubting yourself now trigger immediate recognition of manipulation. Situations that once made you question your worth now expose themselves for what they truly are: distractions. You'll start noticing how certain people drain you just by being in the same room, how certain environments shift your mood instantly, and instead of questioning your sensitivity, you'll start honoring it as a divine warning system. Discernment is not judgment, it's protection. And now, it's one of your greatest weapons. One thing you need to remember is that spiritual healing doesn't erase the past, but it does redefine how the past affects you. The memories will still be there. The scars will still exist, but the emotional charge, the control those memories once had over you, will fade. You'll find yourself thinking about certain people or situations, and instead of feeling triggered, you'll feel indifferent. That's not coldness. That's growth. That's the proof that the assignment failed. The places where your heart once bled are now covered with spiritual armor. And when moments of loneliness come, because they will, remind yourself, loneliness is not a reason to entertain what God already removed. The enemy loves to use isolation as a doorway back into old cycles. On those days when the silence feels heavy, lean into God's presence. Journal your feelings. Call a trusted friend who supports your growth. Do anything except revisit the emotional graves God already buried. This is the time to fill your space with things that nurture your soul, not things that slowly poison it. You'll also notice that people who once drained your energy will instinctively pull away from you now, not because you said anything, but because your new frequency repels anything that doesn't align with your healing. This is spiritual physics at work. Light and darkness cannot coexist peacefully. Where once you adjusted yourself to fit broken spaces, now broken spaces will feel uncomfortable in your presence. That's the power shift that's happening. You're no longer adapting to low frequencies. You're requiring everything around you to rise or leave. And in this new space, you'll begin attracting what truly aligns with your soul's purpose. Friendships that nourish you, opportunities that expand you, relationships built on mutual respect, spiritual alignment, and emotional safety. But this only happens when you stay committed to the new version of yourself. The temptation to slip back into familiar dysfunction will always exist. But every time you choose peace over chaos, boundaries over people-pleasing, and alignment over attachment, you reinforce to the universe, to heaven, and even to the enemy, that the version of you they once knew no longer exists. But now that you've crossed this spiritual threshold, it's important to understand that your healing is not just for you. There are people connected to your voice, your story, your breakthrough, people who are still trapped in cycles you just escaped from. And whether you realize it or not, your energy now carries a frequency of awakening. Your presence will trigger things in others. Some will feel inspired, others will feel uncomfortable, and that's okay. You weren't called to make everyone feel safe. You were called to shift atmospheres, to be a living example that survival is possible, and that light can win even after years of darkness. This is also the season where you'll feel called to protect your peace more fiercely than ever before. That means saying no without guilt, walking away from conversations that don't serve your growth, choosing rest over hustle, prioritizing your spiritual hygiene the same way you prioritize physical health. Your energy is currency now. It's valuable. And just like you wouldn't hand your bank account over to a stranger, you can't hand your emotional access over to people who don't honor it. This level of peace, of clarity, of spiritual protection was hard-earned, and keeping it will require conscious daily choices. The enemy is watching all of this unfold. They're recalculating, looking for new angles, trying to find cracks in your consistency. But here's the truth they can't avoid. You've outgrown their playbook. The manipulations that once worked now feel like weak attempts. The emotional games that used to make you spiral now barely touch your energy field. You've stepped into a space where your spirit responds to darkness with indifference, and your light speaks louder than any argument. They know this, and they hate it. There will still be moments when the enemy sends small tests, subtle emotional triggers, unexpected setbacks. But now, you'll recognize the pattern instantly. You'll pause, breathe, and choose your response with wisdom. You'll pray first, react later. You'll observe rather than absorb. This is what it feels like to finally have spiritual dominion over your life. And every time you pass one of these tests, your authority grows, your light expands, and the spiritual distance between who you are now and who you used to be gets wider and wider. I want you to declare this change right now. If you have felt this message deep within your spirit, if you know this word was meant for you, I want you to write in the comments right now, "I am untouchable." Let the spiritual realm witness your awareness, because the task has failed. Let the enemy know that you are fully awake. Let heaven hear your agreement to this new chapter. And each time you say it out loud, you reinforce the spiritual wall that now surrounds your peace. Please also take this moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. When you engage like this, you are not only helping yourself, you are helping this message reach other chosen ones who may be on the verge of giving up. I want to thank each and every person who supports this channel through Buy Me a Coffee. Your generosity allows us to continue creating these profound messages, spiritually guided with love. If you would like to be a supporter, the link is in the first pinned comment. Before I go, I want to personally invite you to delve even deeper into this awakening. There is another video appearing on your screen now that will help you recognize more spiritual attacks. See you in the next video. Until then, stay extraordinary, and may God bless you.